Just quickly to tell you how we're going to do this. I'm going to essentially go back and look at what we actually do know about this case, because I feel like that's gotten awfully convoluted with the government's sort of trip that they've taken us on through these nanites and bacteria and all this. And then I'm going to just bring up a few quick crystallization points about why we should not press the red button. So, again, let's start with what we do know. Let's look at the case. An alien spaceship's heading towards DC, and we're going to blow the ship up. We know that there are sentient beings on board, and we know that we can't communicate with them right now. That's all we know. The government's job is to prove that that means that we should shoot them down. And to do this, though, they haven't proven that with facts. They've proven that with theories that there might be nanites on board, but there might be. And it goes back to what Jafar said about ignorance. They're trying to prove their case based on what we don't know. And that's great, but when you're talking about something of this magnitude, you have to look at what you actually do know. And that's what we're going to do as the opposition. And that's why we say that we should not shoot the spacecraft down. So, there's really two main reasons that I'd like to detail about why we shouldn't shoot the spacecraft down. The first is, again, that you need to apply the same rights to other sentient beings. And this is something that, the government's going to try to argue that we should blow these aliens up. But the simple fact is that they haven't done anything wrong yet. They've not broken any, I guess they've violated the airspace of the White House, but, I mean, they didn't know that. But really, there's nothing that they've done wrong, and you can't, as a civilization, what does it say about you if you were just going to shoot someone down just because they were approaching? Like, that's like someone's walking by the street on the sidewalk right outside of your house, and you take out a shotgun and shoot. You can't do that because it's a sentient being, and they're just walking along. They haven't done anything wrong yet. So, because of that, that's something that we have to take into account. And again, just as far as Jafar also mentioned, just sentient beings deserve a level of respect, and we've applied that. Dogs have you can't mistreat dogs. And if you apply that to dogs, you can certainly apply that to a species that has traveled millions of miles to get here. So next, again, we're just going to look at the government's taking a practical approach and looking at the harms that have happened, or it could happen. So we're going to do the same. We're going to look at the likely outcome from trying to shoot down this spacecraft. And again, as Jafar mentioned with the technology, you have to, and it's hard because I just criticized them for making assumptions, but you have to look at the likely outcome of shooting them down. And with their technology, being able to travel millions of miles, odds are shooting them down will not harm them. And when that happens, you have the situation where then they are, in their minds, right to defend themselves, which would obviously mean attacking us, which is bringing about the exact point that the government is trying to prevent. So we would even argue that, again, because of how likely that is that their shields are stronger and can protect against a warhead, we have to argue that you're achieving the goal of keeping the human race alive by not attacking them. And just finally to close, I want to just state this again because it's really the most applicable way to look at this. If we were in the spacecraft and we were visiting another planet of life, and if you look at it that way, and we're not trying to attack, we're just out to explore, I don't see the human race as a race that would attack a species that we just come across. I think we'd go down and try to communicate with them. So you have to assume just rationally that that's what they would try to do based upon human reasoning. And when you do that, you realize that firing a missile at them is not a good idea.